everyone, it's JetDream10 here, and welcome back to another digital speed paint. Today I'm drawing Deadpool. Well, actually I drew this like a month ago, I just haven't been able to make the video until now. Anyway, this drawing was suggested by James. Thank you for the suggestion, James, because I had a lot of fun drawing it. Anyway, let's start talking about the drawing. So, here you see that I am in the process of sketching. On the right, you can see my reference photo. I used a reference photo because in this drawing I really wanted it to look realistic. Here you can see that I am doing the base sketch. And the sketching time is spent, well, sketching, but you can see me going in and adjusting the proportions, because if I do it now, I am making things a lot easier for me later on. Although this is digital art, getting a good foundation really helps, so that you can just focus on color and shading afterwards. But, obviously since this is digital art, I could still go back later and change things. The sketch is really loose, but I will come back later and add a second sketch, which will be more refined. I'm not trying to go into full detail right here, just adding some basic shapes to get an idea of where everything's going to go. Again, as time passes, I notice some problems with the proportions, so all I have to do is just go back and fix them with the loop tool. Or with the eraser. Remember that second sketch that I was talking about? Well, here it is. This time I'm making sure that what I drew was accurate before, and adjusting what wasn't. But I'm also trying to make the lines a bit smoother and more defined than the last time. I'm also doing this sketch on a different layer as the last one, so that I can hide the first sketch and see how the second sketch is doing. Also, I will easily be able to get rid of the base sketch when I no longer need it. Here, at this point here, I had so much trouble drawing that hand. I spent probably like half an hour, 45 minutes just sketching that hand. It took so long, but so I kept redrawing the gun, looking at different photos of Deadpool holding the gun. I just couldn't figure it out. It's like, how do you draw him with his hand around it? And I couldn't do it, but finally, after so many attempts and so much time of just looking at him holding it, I realized where everything was supposed to go, and I drew it. And I was so happy with it, and I just kept building upon it. But the second hand, to be honest, was a lot easier to draw. The one on the right, our right, if we're looking at the screen. That one was a lot easier. I didn't have to spend as much time on it as I did the other one. After drawing the hands holding the weapons, I drew his tool belt. So in the very center of his tool belt, there's like a little, well, his logo sign, the Deadpool face circle. I can't remember what it's called. And then just the belt tied around it with all of his tools and stuff inside. And this is where I deleted the base sketch and started coloring. At this point, the color really does not need to be perfect at all. You just need something to fill in the blank spaces. It just has to be close enough. If Deadpool's suit is red with gray, then I just put a random red with a random gray, and should be fine, and I'll fix it later, because at the moment it really just is kind of values that matter, and just blocking in the base colors. And this bit here, just filling in on the colors, as you can tell, goes by a lot quicker than the sketching did. we're just zooming through this because it is really just the base colors, and at the moment it doesn't matter, and you can kind of just go through this quickly, not rushing it. Don't rush it, just go through it at a good pace. You don't really need to slow down too much for the base colors because you're just filling in color. So here I've got all my base colors down. And now I am just going in and adding some highlights where the highlights are going to be. Not as bright as they're going to be yet. I'm going to make them a lot brighter later on. Just blocking in where the highlights are going to be. Maybe blending them out a little bit with the blend tool later on. Actually, not quite yet, but in a second I'll be blending it out with the blend tool. There we go. So just blocking in the highlights, even if they're not absolutely correct, just where they're going to go, and so that I can know for later on exactly where I need to focus on. Here I'm doing the exact same thing, just like I did with the highlights. I'm just finding where there's going to be shadows and just blocking in some shadows, even if they're not completely accurate. They're just there to remind me later when I'm going to come back and put them in more detail and paying more attention to how they go and how dark they are and everything. At this point, I'm going back and adjusting the color. The red of his suit was way too bright, so I fixed it. I didn't want a comic book style with this like I wanted with the Spider-Man drawing that I did 2 videos ago. In that drawing, the colors were really, really bright and saturated, but here I wanted them to be toned down and make them look as they would in real life. Now here I'm really starting to slow down and take my time. I'm concentrating on just one area at a time so that I don't feel overwhelmed by the area that I need to cover and make realistic. So here I am just focusing on the face and just taking my time there, getting the color right and all of those things just to make it a little bit more realistic. Obviously I will come back later and add more to it, but just, you know, to get that base and start to make it look more realistic than I did before. And then I'm just working my way down and doing the exact same thing. Here I'm fixing the color, adding texture, and focusing on getting the look right. To make it easier, I like to see things as abstract shapes. So instead of saying to myself, I am drawing Deadpool, or I am drawing the wrinkles in Deadpool's suit, no, I am drawing these abstract shapes and I'm trying to get them as realistic as possible. This will make it so much easier to tell your brain to see things as they actually are and not what you think they look like. Now, Deadpool's suit is really worn down and has different stains and patches on it, which I really want to emulate in this drawing. There's a highlight that I just added there that's coming from the back. Another thing they have to pay attention to is the source of light. So wherever the light is coming from, wherever it's hitting, that's where their highlights are going to be. And I was just looking at my reference photo really well, and as you can see in that reference photo, by his arm there is a highlight because the light is coming from behind him. As you can see here, I'm not actually focusing on one specific area at the moment. I am just kind of going around in places that I've missed. Obviously, I haven't worked on the legs yet, but in the places that I've already gone over, I'm just going back, adding some little details that I might have missed before I move on to work on the legs. So now that I finished that, I'm working on the legs and doing the same thing as before, just blocking in and blending out the highlights, shadows, where there's going to be darks, where there's going to be lights, the patches and stains on his suit, and just basically going back with the same techniques and same routine as I did with the rest of his body. Now, at this point, actually a lot of people would call it finished, but it really isn't. There is so many details to add to make it look even better. So remember, don't call your art finished prematurely, as there could still be so many things to add to make it look even better than before. This is especially easier to do with digital art, as you can save a copy just in case things don't go to plan, because this drawing is still far from finished. For example, one of the reasons that it is far from finished is that the tool belt and all of its accessories still need a lot of work and detail, which I am putting into the now. I am really trying to get good contrast and my values right, which is super important to making a realistic drawing. Also, even in the places that have had lots of work done already, I keep going back and doing more to get it where I am perfectly happy with it. I am not afraid of overworking the art, because that isn't possible, especially with digital art, because if you mess up, just go over it. So don't be afraid of adding more to your drawing if you're not happy with it. Or even if you are happy with it, you can still go back and find places where it can be even better. Here at this point, there was something that wasn't quite right with the face. I wasn't sure what, so I just kept going in and changing things and looking at my reference photo, coming back into the face and just changing things until I was happy. And then finally I got it and I was happy with it, and then later I was able to move on. Here I'm going back and adding even more contrast. Now I am working on the guns that he is holding. Now, don't ask me what kind of gun it is because I have no clue. I am not good with this kind of stuff. But anyway, I am not too worried about the color for this because it doesn't really matter as long as the values are correct. And if I wanted, I could even make them purple, and they would still look realistic if I had my values right. But I think I've already proved my point, and let's move on. And now that I have finished Deadpool himself, it is time to do the background. I had so much trouble with this, and although it took me a really long time to do Deadpool, I feel like just figuring out what I wanted for the background was probably one of the hardest things of this entire piece. It was really hard. I I had no idea what I wanted it to look like. So first, I made it look similar to the one in my reference photo, but I didn't like it. It was too crowded, and it did not match what I was looking for. But I didn't like it. I was trying to make it work, but it just didn't. Then for a brief period of time, I tried a red background, but I immediately found out that that was not going to work and got rid of it. So I tried making a gray background. This is the one that I eventually went for. I just had to figure out what I wanted and tweaked it a bunch. I changed the tones of the grays. Here, as you can see, I was trying to add rays of light, and I just kept playing with it, kept changing things until I was happy. And this is the background that I went for. But anyway, we are reaching the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned some things along the way. If you want to see more, then don't forget to subscribe and follow my social media. All of those links will be in the description box below. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you have a wonderful day. I will see you next time. Bye!